Toledo Planning Commission. We'll do a verbal roll call. We want to start with you, Brian,
Brian Laverne here.
Ann Ellis here.
Ricky Dyson here.
or Warfield here.
Dennis Sutherland here.
Okay. And visitors, a time set aside, not on the agenda, but you guys are here for the public meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the next thing we'll do is approval of the minutes of the May 14th meeting.
Can you hear me?
Is that you, Jonathan?
Yeah, it is.
Oh,
Okay,
good.
Jonathan Mix. Thank you.
Yep, Jonathan Mick. Yeah, I don't know how to do the ID thing. I don't know if it work.
Okay, so I don't know how much Jonathan just heard, but we're going to approve the minutes. Does anybody want to move to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Okay, anybody want to second that?
I wasn't here last.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Okay. And did we hear from Jonathan too?
Yeah, I'll move.
Or you voted aye
Yeah.
on that? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Thanks, Jonathan. Okay. Next thing on the agenda is the public hearing. So I'm gonna open up the public hearing. First off, I want to ask for any declaration of conflict of interest, ex parte contact, or a bias by commissioners. Anybody that went by and did a site visit, anything like that.
I drove by this morning.
I drove by today as well.
I've been down there before.
Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna read the statement of rights and relevance. All testimony or evidence presented toward the request being heard must be directed toward the relevant criteria contained in the Toledo municipal codes, to other city plans or policies, or to other criteria which a person believes pertains to the request. All persons shall raise issues with sufficient clarity so as to allow the planning commission or others an adequate opportunity to respond to or resolve the issue. Failure to address a criterion before the close of the hearing record precludes an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that criterion. Failure by the applicant no later than the close of the hearing record to raise constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the city to respond to the issues will preclude an action for damages based on those issues in the circuit court. Prior to the close of the evidentiary record of this hearing, a participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence, arguments, or testimony regarding the application. If a participant requests such an opportunity prior to the close of the evidentiary record, then Planning Commission will either continue the hearing for at least 7 days or leave the record open for at least 7 days to allow the submission of additional written evidence, arguments, or testimony. An appeal from an action or ruling by the Planning Commission can be made to the City Council within 14 days after the date of the Planning Commission's decision or ruling by filing a written notice and paying the appeal fee. The date of the Planning Commission decision is the date the order is signed. If no appeal is taken within the 14-day period, the action or ruling of the Planning Commission shall be final. If an appeal is filed, the council shall receive a report and recommendation from the appropriate city official and shall hold a public hearing. In order to have standing for an appeal, a person must have mailed written notice or have participated in writing or in person at the Planning Commission public hearing or have been substantially affected by the action or ruling. Okay, then I think with that, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you.
Talk about the.
Okay. Thank you. So I'll do a short staff report here, and I did want to note there's a couple typos. It should be CU-3-98. There's a couple places where we say 2 on accident.
I'm sorry, it should be what?
CU-3-98.
Okay, so this one right here is the right.
And it's a modification to an existing conditional use, specifically the condition number one. So kind of this property is located off Lincoln Way, 1803, and then that previous conditional use was approved in 1998. So essentially since 98, the property is operated as a church. And before that, it was a medical center at that location. So this application, I guess that original application in 98 was to convert an old hospital and medical clinic. And I guess there's also electronics assembly plant and warehouse to a church and a community hall building. So kind of with conditional uses, if there's a major modification to the site, then this has to come through planning commission for the modification approval. And the proposal here is a new building on the north end of the building, actually where there used to be another portion of the building. So there's kind of a vacant concrete pad that's currently there. So that's where the proposed building would be located on the site. So overall, the facts and findings remain consistent with that previous approval, with the exception of the new building, and staff is for one proposal that I'll get into more detail of proposing an amendment to the deferred maintenance timeline. So before, the deferred maintenance timeline was actually 3 years on the original approval. But obviously and that's for potential sidewalks and improvements to the roadway. That did not occur in that previous period of time because there are issues in terms of the wanting the sidewalks or not. So there was some pause to that. So basically what staff's proposing is that the deferred maintenance agreement gets signed, but it's not a 3-year, within 3 years, that it's just when other improvements end up happening to Lincoln Way, that they would all occur at once, so that there would be a consistent portion of all of Lincoln Way completed, and then the sidewalks then would be complete, and they would only be responsible for what's in front of their property. With the deferred maintenance agreement is how those work. That is likely, as we've seen, it didn't happen from 98 till now. So sometimes those deferred maintenance agreements, they're recorded, so they're in the record, but they might not occur for a long time. And that's not uncommon. So as a reminder, this is in a residential, the RS zone, the standard residential zone. So that's why it was a conditional use application. So religious uses are listed as a conditional use in the standard residential zone. I'm not gonna get into too much detail in terms of the site, since it's an existing site that's operated since 98. Kind of one note, we sent we didn't get any public comments, but we did send comments to building, fire, police, standard internal departments. And then we also sent a notice to the Department of Environmental Quality because the old conditional use had some information about an old tank. So we were trying to get more information about where that tank process was in terms of the removal. So we got some information back from DEQ, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But we're not proposing to change that condition as part of this. Kind of, again, the authority of conditional uses, so planning commission makes the approval motion or denial motion as part of the process. If there's an appeal, it goes to the city council. And it's what's considered a type 3 quasi judicial approval. We did a little bit, we cited, I'm not gonna go read through it all, but there's the RS zone that I cited in terms of where religious uses fall. So jumping to page 4 in terms of a little more information. Again, it's a modification to that conditional use. We listed one kind of interesting thing, and since that last conditional use approval, we now know that we updated our comprehensive plan. So there's some comprehensive land use policies that we listed. So one is around housing, so adequate supply of residentially zoned housing, land for housing, so that staff finds that that condition is met because this is a property that's operated as a church since 1998. So we're not no new residential land is being removed as part of this process. Transportation improvements, so in terms of development, requiring development to extend or improve transportation facilities. So in this case, that's taken care of with the proposed deferred maintenance agreement proposal. The staff finds that it meets the comprehensive plan policies. Again, I noted, so future significant enlargements or major alterations of a conditional use, so that's where this comes in, where it's in a new building that's being proposed on the north end of the property. In the application materials, and I won't go through all this because the applicant's here and will kind of provide some details as well about the proposal. But they provided information about what the building might be used for in the future. One kind of note is that we submitted to fire and building to get comments through this conditional use process. We tried to send a secondary notice and get comments, but we didn't receive any comments back from them before the completion. But ultimately, after this is approved, they'll have to go through the building permit process. And then as part of that, fire will review the building and they'll make sure that all their codes are met through that process. And kind of one, kind of the proposed, I'm on page 7, but the proposed additional building is suitable for the site considering the lot size and applicant's proposed design and operating characteristics of the use. Again, where that building's being placed, there used to be a portion of the building that was removed. I can't actually tell you the year, but the applicant might be able to tell you what year that was actually removed from the site. And then the access is not proposed to change as part of the new building. The applicant did note in their materials too that the access was working well, and they haven't had any issues. And then a little bit, again, I talked about that deferred maintenance agreement a bit already. And then as part of the proposal, we'll need with the new building, just a new parking plan submitted or confirming that parking plan will stay the same. So that's a condition of approval. And then there's some findings here about the fire and building code aspect in terms of that would be a condition of approval that they have to go through the building code process. And that's a pretty standard condition with pretty much any conditional use that we run into with a new building. And I started talking about the DEQ comments. So staff kind of dug around and reached out to DEQ, and there's some indication that those tanks might have been had sand added to them or been partially decontaminated. But then in talking to DEQ, basically the response that we got back from them was the underground fuel storage tanks are kind of their records aren't clear in terms of what that they could find. Again, this was, I said 98, so they were looking back for the records. But they did recommend what's called a geophysical survey to determine if the tank's still there. And then removal of that tank ultimately, if it is there. And then basically what staff's recommending, that's not a condition that's listed in this amendment, but it was listed in that previous conditional use. So we're not proposing to change that condition as part of this. Kind of going through back to page 11. So essentially the conditions that are proposed is that the approval is based on the submitted application. So essentially what the building that's on the plan ultimately, that's what we'll be checking to make sure that's what is on the building permit plan, so that hasn't changed. Compliance with building and fire codes, a revised parking plan being submitted. And then the other conditions in CU-3-98 would stay the same, with the exception of that deferred maintenance agreement changing from 3 years and removing that 3-year requirement. And then now with our new code updates around conditional uses, they actually have, there's a 2-year period to complete rather than the 1-year period. So that noting that change from the previous approvals, and there technically would also be if the building got delayed, there'd be an option for a 1-year renewal if that was needed, but that would be a separate request. But the 2 years allows for more time to complete the building. That is everything I kind of wanted to go over, and if I can take any clarifying questions in terms of from the planning commission, but I want to let the applicant speak too. Thanks.
Maybe the applicant, I'm curious as to where on the property the fuel tanks are, you know? I don't see it on the map. Does anyone know?
I have a general idea.
You do? Okay.
They're clear in the back of the building.
That makes sense, yeah,
By the garage,
okay.
because they went back there and they removed all the fuel. And as I understood it, they put sand in because there was no leakage.
Okay, I was curious as to where, I figured maybe towards the back of the building.
Yeah, it'd be all the way in the back.
Yeah.
But there was always a question, I could never find it on any of the original plans. I know where they got the fuel out of. I don't know where the tanks are in that part of the parking lot, but it's back where the garbage cans are.
Thank you.
Well, since we've jumped to the applicant testimony, if you want to go ahead and step up and.
Sure.
Yeah, and you'll have to state your name and address for the record.
Okay, my name is Charles Adams, the pastor of Toledo Foursquare Church. I live in Newport, work here in Toledo. And we want to put up a 30 by 60 metal building on that slab, mostly for storage and shade in the summer. And that's about it. It had an 8,500 square foot building on the slab. Probably 10 years ago that was removed. I think we could check because we had a demolition permit for that. And it was just a dangerous building, so we removed it. Any questions or?
We can let proponent testimony go too, and there'll be time for questions for the commission too, for if there are too as well. So it's a very rigid public hearing structure.
Yeah, so if there's any proponent testimony, anybody else besides the applicant that wants to speak?
That's you.
I don't see any opponent testimony, doesn't look like, I don't see anybody here, or other interested parties. So the applicant probably doesn't need to rebut anything. So I guess now we come to the questions by the commission. Does anybody have any questions at all of the applicant?
Well, I have something.
Okay,
Yeah, if them tanks were in the back, then that has no, I'm perfectly fine with putting the building on that pad, because that's not even close to where them tanks were. And if them tanks are sitting there filled with sand, then I think we can just move on without not worrying about disturbing them tanks. So I don't see no problem with that. I don't think we even need to address that. So I'm perfectly fine with going ahead with putting a building on that pad. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I think my thoughts are looking at the work they've done so far on refurbishing that place. It's been a really good job. really are careful. So I have no doubt that they'll do a good job on this.
Somebody's outside.
Are you in the rainforest, Dennis?
Well, so I have a question for you, Justin.
Yeah.
On this, I've marked a few things in here. When it comes to those tanks, and I'm fine with them as well. But what it says here is the underground fuel storage tanks are to be removed and the site decontaminated by December 31 and 98. Now, I know that that's from the original one, but you said that we weren't gonna change anything on that. So is that still the requirement that once DEQ or they get that testing done, is that tank gonna be required to be removed?
Yeah, and that's, as it's written, yeah, that's what we would, the condition in 98.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there's potential where that could be modified, where it's that there's, coordination with DEQ on the next steps or something along those lines. I could see as a modification to that potentially.
Okay, I was just wondering about it because
Yeah.
it kind of, it said that it will be or are to be removed.
Well, yeah, and that's, obviously the date, we're past that date, but,
Yeah,
But if they were to follow through, require anything at this point where the tanks are located, shouldn't make any difference to what they want to do with what's happening now. It's not going to complicate matters. That's why I was kind of curious as to where they might be in case somebody did say, we need to do whatever we need to do.
so does that mean then that we would need to make some changes on this if we as the commission decide that that tank doesn't need to be removed?
yeah, I would,
Or I don't want to get in the way of DEQ, I'm not saying that, but
yeah, I would say maybe more of a deferring to contacting DEQ, because an outcome could be that that's still what they request.
right.
Um,
It could be, yeah.
But then it could be that they find that what was done previously was adequate. So that might be a better way to make this, give the applicant more options in terms of a path forward.
I don't see where it has any conflict with what they want to do now myself. I mean, it's kind of
Yeah,
a catch 22, but somebody somewhere is going to maybe find the answer, or maybe, it might be files get lost sometimes. So who knows what they're going to want.
Okay, this,
So are we doing commissioner comments right now or?
yes, we're doing commissioner questions, yeah, right now.
Okay, so, but not the actual, commissioner comment section, right? Just questions for Justin?
These are questions for during the public meeting,
yeah, it could be for me or the.
yeah, for Justin or for the applicant.
Okay, well, I'll just wait until the commissioner comments then.
Okay, that sounds good.
Before we go, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I guess if nobody else has any other questions or needs to hear any more testimony, we'll go ahead and close the public meeting. And we can deliberate, or how does,
So it's
Yeah.
commissioner comments, debate right now, right?
are you talking about outside of the public meeting?
No, for the public meeting, but we discuss it before we vote on it, right?
Yes, we're discussing it right now. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay, so then I'll make my statement then. Well, I feel that the tanks are out of the way, just like everybody else is saying, but, and also that the added expense to have to mess with those tanks before they can put a building up doesn't really make any sense to me, because churches typically have pretty tight budgets. And so I would say if we could bypass the tanks and they can deal with that separately and then let them move forward on the building. That's my opinion.
I thought that I had read that that the recommendation was for the property owner to follow up with DEQ and find out. That the city itself isn't that what I read in here, or did I not?
Yeah, and for the finding following up with DEQ.
Yeah, so my understanding is that once we approve, if we approve, I mean, it's if the folks are gonna say, hey, find it in your records and we're not, I don't see this stopping.
Yeah.
I don't see this clause prohibiting them from proceeding on.
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, and I would agree that the building permit after this could get submitted and then kind of in the background. DEQ's
Yeah.
works
Yeah.
occurring in terms
They can
of
start.
finding that information.
Okay.
So in lieu of that,
Well, in lieu of that, does somebody want to make a motion?
I would propose, based on the testimony received with the corrections about the CE number at the beginning, CU number, the staff report and the evidence and arguments before the planning commission at the public hearing on June 11th, 2025. The planning commission finds the request by International Church of the Foursquare Gospel and authorized agent Charles W. Adams, is this the right one? CE-3-9.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Modification number 3 complies with the criteria identified in Toledo Municipal Code 17.64.050. The planning commission hereby adopts the staff report as findings, as well as the proposed conditions of the approval for CE-3-98, modification number 1, and allowing for the correction of typographical errors and grammatical errors.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll say that.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Alright.
Did we get both Dennis and Jonathan?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay,
Yep.
that's good. So the motion has passed. So,
Have fun.
yeah,
Thanks. Thank you very much. Thank you. You'll get an order in the mail, kind of describing everything.
Happy building.
Thank you. We know early from you. Yeah. And we'll not be requesting any money. Yeah. Thank you.
so that's why. Yeah, and mostly, they don't know, there hasn't been really any permits asked for.
Interesting.
Okay, we will move on to discussion items, updates and reports.
Yeah,
Does Justin have anything?
I think I mentioned it at the last meeting, but Public Works on the, their, with the grant, obviously the bathroom, went in there, down at Arcadia, but then the tennis courts will be resurfaced here in the coming months. So they're working on that as a next step. And I think they'll actually be resurfaced and have, the tennis court markings and also pickleball, which is
Oh, well, that's good.
popular.
Yeah.
Interesting to see how that's done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be good.
So they'll have those sometime this summer is what they're targeting for that. And I think otherwise, as the only other update I had was that there won't be a July meeting. It falls just after the 4th, so you can enjoy the summer and enjoy the 4th of July.
That actually works really well for me.
You have any updates?
Okay, so any additional staff comments or anything? Okay, commissioner comments. So I didn't know if Jonathan had something he wanted to talk about in this portion of the commissioner?
No.
Okay.
No, that was, I was talking about the hearing part. I want
Okay,
to discuss.
okay.
Yeah, no, that's not what I want to say.
Okay, well, I have something and I don't want to bore you guys. But I just thought it was really interesting. I attended one of those classes that Arlene had sent the email to us, and this one was, now I can't remember the name of it. It was, what was it? Running a meeting, basically
Planning,
running
yeah.
a meeting.
Specifically for planning commission.
Planning
Yeah.
commission, running a planning commission. And I don't wanna like bore you with the whole thing. It was really a good class, but they have a section in here on pitfalls. And I just thought I'd run through that really quick. We don't really do any of this stuff. I mean, I think we handle these really well, but I thought it was kind of interesting what she was talking about. And she said, what is a planning commission? A planning commission is a body that has been established in order to do a job assigned by someone else. And then she says, this can be a challenge. And then she gives some pitfalls here. And here's a situation that the planning commission is considering a request to lower the setback from 50 feet to 20 feet. And a commissioner asks, isn't there a better place in the city to site this hotel? And the pitfall is confusion about scope. You must answer the questions assigned to you by the council, not propose unrelated alternatives. And this one is the Environmental Commission is considering recommending setting aside some wetlands. And a commissioner says, I think we can't address this until the university report comes out in 5 years. And the pitfall here is asking for the moon. It is an unfortunate fact of governance that sometimes bodies must make decisions with less than adequate information. Here's the next one. The staff have made a recommendation to purchase a historic farm site as a museum. And the commissioner says, why are the staff making this recommendation? I think we're wasting our money on staff salaries. Only residents really understand the issues here. Now, pitfall is confusion about staff role. Confusion about staff roles takes many forms. Obviously, we need staff. It would not be possible for residents alone to conduct the business of a modern city. There are other confusions as well. We will address the role of staff in another section. But then this one, which I thought was pretty good, the staff has carried out a survey and the commissioner says, since I'm a professional surveyor, I can redo the survey to verify it. And the pitfall is confusion about your job. Commissioner may have valuable particular expertise, but they are recruited to the commission as a volunteer, not as a technical expert. Let staff be staff and volunteers be volunteers. And then in this one, this is about public outcry. There has been a public outcry about changes to the irrigation district boundaries. Commissioner says, 6 of my neighbors are very upset about this. They've taken the trouble to come to our meetings, so we should do what they want. The pitfall is deafened by decibels. Being swayed by the emotional power of a presentation is a common problem. Decisions should be rational, not determined by decibels. So I thought that, here's this next one. This is the last one I'll tell you about. But the situation is a mixed public opinion about a developer's plans to site a shopping center near the main road. Commissioner says, when we're getting so many different conflicting views on this, I think we should just punt for another 6 months. The pitfall is decision delay. And this I thought was really important. A planning commission is expected to render decisions in a timely manner. Some applications suffer death by 1,000 nicks. This is related to death by 1,000 days, which is the continuation of projects like a soap opera. So, I think there's only been one time that I recall by sitting on this commission that I think we pushed a decision to the next meeting. And I'm trying to think, was that about the port with the water thing? Or was that, I feel like there's just been one time that for some reason we had to push it to
There've been a few, I think, yeah, but I don't think it was, I remember one, but I don't think it
It
was.
was important. I couldn't remember one.
Yeah.
I remember, I feel like we needed more information from Justin or something
Yeah.
before we could make a decision.
Or
But
maybe the applicant. Yeah.
maybe it
yeah.
was something like that.
We approved and didn't have all the information. And then the city council had to like not approve it.
Yeah, I don't think that one got continued at planning commission. I think you're right.
Oh,
The
okay.
council and the council changed the decision, yeah.
But see, by listening to all of this and the things she's talking about in the class, I thought, we have pretty easy meetings for the most part. There was a lot of talk about everybody should be able to talk if they want to talk. Like, everybody has their turn. And before somebody can have a second turn, you want to make sure everybody's had their one turn, so there's a lot of that type of thing. But I thought it was really interesting. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Wasn't it about 90 minutes?
Yeah, it was an hour. I was thinking 2 hours.
2 hours.
Yeah, it was really good.
But it went really fast.
Yeah.
And she did a really good job. But I just wanted to share that. I thought
I'm glad
pitfalls
you,
were
you
kind of
I saw
interesting.
that, and yeah, and I forget, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That
yeah.
is so good. They put out a lot of good stuff.
Well, and this one has
And you
just
don't have to travel to get it.
one last one. It says the Arts Commission is considering a report about the museum. And the commissioner says, I was on my honeymoon in Norway and I just haven't had time to study this. The pitfall is failure to read your packet.
Yeah.
Commissioners must read their packets before the meeting. So there were just a lot of good things. But yeah, I thought, anyway.
Well, thank you for attending and
And
Give it a-
summarizing it so
yeah.
well, getting the good high,
Very good.
high points.
that's always helpful. I think we try to do, and we'll do one probably soon, another, I think a few years ago, we actually have the Department of Land Conservation and Development came and presented a little bit, and then I've done short presentations too. But there's always some nuances too when you get into like a specific scenario that we might not have had before, because I think overall our hearings sometimes are dry because there's no one here, but
Yeah.
there have been a few where there's quite a bit of public comment. So we want to be prepared for the one where there's the outcry in terms of people.
And that could happen. I'm not looking forward to that. But that somebody could ask to do something that a lot of people that aren't happy with it. So, yeah, I look forward to that.
It's for how long people can talk.
I know, well, that's what it says in there too,
Yeah.
time limits. Does any other commissioner have any comments or anything? Questions? Going on over town?
So everybody should have a safe Fourth. It's going to be a dry one. I guess the gorge is having some problems right now.
Did you see there was a fire at the dam?
Yeah. You mean at the Dalles?
At the dam, Olalla,
Oh, really? Oh.
Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hmm.
fire trucks followed us out. We were going home. And I told my husband, I said, God, these fire trucks or the sirens sound really close, like they're on our road. And we pull up into our driveway, and about the time we get into our driveway, they go racing by.
Do they know what started it? Just.
Not that I heard,
Yeah.
just that it was on the other side of the gate because the
Mm.
lake is closed.
Yeah.
So it wasn't
Yeah.
near, or, it wasn't up there by the lake, but it was below that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just something to follow up, do we have any more information on those apartments on Studevant Road? The
The low.
Oh, low
Oh,
income.
Yeah, so the Lala Meadows project.
yeah, what progress have they got on that?
So they have submitted their building permit package and everything, and it's actually at the point where it's at the county review process in terms of going through plans.
Okay, thank you.
And they're still within the time frame.
Yeah, so the timeframe was that they had to get their city approval before, I can't remember the exact date, but it was like June. It would have been coming up quick. It was mid-June of this year, but the how it's the conditional uses, if they get that building permit package approved, in terms of like our end, so planning review, public works review, fire, that they've met that timeline. And then they'll be likely breaking ground here this summer.
Like this summer in 25.
Yeah, so it's in the county review, sometimes can take some time in terms of their structural and all that review, but yeah, we at the city processed it in May in terms of getting that to the county.
Just curious, but how did they fund that in the end?
I couldn't tell you the exact funding source, but it was a variety of state and I think maybe a little bit of federal funding.
Okay.
So the state has different programs. I'm not an expert in those, but that's kind of how they were able to put the funding together. There's an application process for the nonprofits across the state, and that's how they had to go through all of that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay, I will adjourn the meeting. And we'll say